Aaron? Can't hear you.
Hi, sorry.
Yeah, it's good. The audio is fine.
Okay. So, trying to get this to stand. All right, let's get started. So today, we're going to learn about Hanukkah. Doesn't sound like a very timely topic at all. But maybe we need miracles in our time, so that's why we're learning it. All right. We're up to the top of Chaf Aleph 21a, Chaf Aleph and Aleph. The rabbis learned all the things that we said you can't light with them on Shabbos. Oh, I didn't look this over. But everything that you can't light with on Shabbos, you're allowed to make a medura. You're allowed to make a big bonfire with them. And a big bonfire with them. Whether it's to heat up next to it or whether it's to use its light. It doesn't matter what's on the ground, whether it's on a stovetop, or whether it's on a candelabra. All these things are talking about only for a wick for the nair. All these things are not a problem because of the reason that we're going to speak out in a moment, or maybe we did speak out, I remember, but that they don't light well, and we're afraid that there'll be bittul on Shabbos, so you may come to fix it, etc., etc. But a bonfire or a big fire is not a problem. The Gemara writes, "Lo b'shem kik." You can also light with shem and kik. What is shem and kik? Very vague what shem and kik is. So my shem and kik, I asked all the nechusiyam, all the people who went overseas, people who are very experienced in all over the world and who knew things, and they amarli oifechad yesh bekarchayam. They told me that there's a bird, yesh bekarchayam, who's way overseas somewhere. The kick shmo, its name is kick. So it's oil from this bird. It's this fats from this bird. So apparently the fats from this bird don't light well. Rabbi Yitzchak Breda Yehuda Amar Mishcha de Kaza. He says Mishcha de oil from a kaza. What's oil de kaza? It's oil from cotton. What?
Mishcha is cream.
Yeah, in modern Hebrew it's cream, but I guess Rashi's translated shemen. Mishcha shemen. In Aramaic means shemen.
Okay.
Shemen she'oisim again. I don't know what the Zionists did to the language that they took from they took words from Aramaic. They took words from different things. They messed around with it all. You know? All right. So Mishcha is shemen she'oisim. They make it from cotton seed. It's cotton oil. I think we have such a thing nowadays, cotton oil. But cotton oil you can't light from. So Mishcha de Kaza. Rish Lakish Dama Kikoy Niona. It's the Kikoy Niona, which is this is the tree of Yonah. It comes from the seeds from this tree. And Amar Rabbi Rachan the Di Chazlikon. Rabbi Rachan relates over. I saw the Kikoy Niona. I saw it. I know what it is. Ulitzaliva Adami. It's Litzaliva Adami, and it looks like a saliva. What's saliva? Rashi says it is. It's a non-fruit-bearing tree. That's what the translation on the side says. And Pashri means Rabbi, Pashri Rabbi, and it grows on like swampy lands. Bitze Mayim, Rashi says, like very watery ground. It grows on. And the minhag was that they used to take it and put it on the storefronts. It produced a lot of shade. And from its seeds, they used to make oil. That's the oil we're talking about. This type of oil doesn't light so well. Uban poi naichan, kol briche de marava. And people used to rest in the shade. All the different people, the marava of Marava is usually Eretz Yisrael, used to rest in the shade, lie down in the shade. From the shades that are produced by its branches. I think that's I think I translated somewhat correctly. So that's what it is. So this type of oil, the only thing which I really know what it is cottonseed oil. It's like the more tops in that cottonseed oil. And other than this, if we know what this is, which I'm not sure we know what it is nowadays exactly. Amar Rabba says, Psilois Amar Chachamim, Psilois, that. Sorry. Psilois, the wicks, Shamar Chachamim Malikim Shabbos. All these wicks that the rabbis say don't lie with them is because the fire jumps on them. They don't stay remaining in one place. They hop around the fire like sparks and jumps around. And the problem with that is there's another pshat Rashi gives. It doesn't go internally into the wick. It just the flame surrounds the wick. Apparently that's a problem. But they don't light nicely. It's not geschmack. It doesn't light nicely. You may come to fix it on Shabbos. All the oils that rabbis passed because all the oils don't get drawn after the wick. They don't light nicely either. The wick, they don't. The fire and the wick are not able to draw them properly. That's the question from Rabbi. All the oils the rabbis say you can't light by the Shabbos. Are you allowed to put a little bit of oil, proper oil, which you're allowed to light with, in it? The yad can light it. In other words, that will apparently, if you put a little bit of oil in it, that will jumpstart it, or that will keep it going the entire time, and that will properly allow it to draw after the bad oil. So the question is, are we allowed to light with bad oil if through the conduit of good oil? Because the good oil, a little bit in it, will help fix the problem. The question is migazrinam. Now, certainly what it does, it fixes the problem, but the question is, rabbis always make decrees that we're worried if we allow this, they might come to light alone with the bad oil. Now, although, are we worried that maybe it'll come to light the einayu alone with the bad oil or not? So Amalei, Rabba answered Abaye, Malikin, you cannot light. My time al fisha Malikin, because fisha Malikin, right. The side translates this. It's like, you say in Hebrew, Michael, why is this way? Kacha.
Kacha's.
So since the Gemara seems to be saying that, why don't you like kacha? Because malik, we don't light. The side said there was a kabbalah. That was a tradition passed down. We don't light, and obviously what the Gemara means is we're worried about exera. We're worried. Perhaps if you do this, you might come to actually light with a bad oil alone, even though you are lighting with good oil, but it's still a problem. Okay. Esvei. So he said you can't do it, but Esvei, I want to bring a brisa that seems to say you could light with the bad oil as long as you wrap good oil around it. If you wrap, it seems like this is talking about the wicks. If you take one of the bad wicks and you wrap a good wick around it, right? You wrap the good wick around a bad wick. You're not allowed to light with it. But Rav Shmuel says, he said, my father's house, they used to wrap it around the psila agabi egos. They used to take a wick and wrap it around. Egos is a walnut. I guess a walnut is somewhat flammable, but obviously it's not a proper wick to light with. Umalik, and they used to light. But the point is, the point we're in the middle of Chaf Aleph, Amid Aleph, like the middle of the page, 21a, middle of the page. So the Gemara says, Ketani Mias, Malikin, we see over here to light. Right?
You're big.
What's up? So you see you're allowed to light, even though it's bad oil, but if bad wick, but you wrap the good wick, it's okay.
Yeah.
Amalei, he said to I don't understand. There's two opinions in this brisa. Why are you asking me for Megamliel? Bring a proof from the Tanakama. The first opinion of the brisa seems to concur with my idea. If you look at the first opinion portion of the it says if you wrapped a bad wick, a good wick on a bad wick, right, you are not allowed to light with it. So why are you asking me from Rosh Hashanah? Bring me a proof for the Tanakama. The Gemara answered, Halo Kasha, this is a very universal concept in the Gemara. This is not a question because Maisarav, a story is the master, a story is the Rebbe. When you have that's a language of Maisarav. An incident that brought down in a mission or a story is much more authoritative than actual opinion. Because it shows that it's not just the base medrash, it was actualized in halacha. So a story means much more. And therefore, since Rav Shimon Gamliel was telling over an incident story and it was recorded that way, that's more authoritative. So we see a question over here. How could Rabbah answer that you're not allowed to light? You're not allowed with a bad wick, even if you put good wick over it, or by oil, the same thing. You can't mix the good oil and the bad oil together because we're afraid you might do it alone. We see Rav Shimon Gamliel brought an incident from his father that you're allowed to do that. My lab lahadlik was it not that Rav Shimon Gamliel's father used to put a good wick on top of a walnut and light? And so the Gemara loy lahakvos. He was doing it. Lahakvos means just to support it. He wasn't putting the good wick around the walnut in order to light the walnut. The walnut was merely there as to produce a floating wick, as Rashi says. A floating wick. That's all it was doing. But it wasn't there as a means to light the wick. It was there just to support so the good wick could float on top of it. Ask the Gemara, my comment on Tama, if it's just there to support as a floating wick, why does the Tanakama prohibit that? Right? If you're going to tell me they're arguing about the point before about wrapping a good wick on a bad wick, then I understand what the argument is about. But if it's merely as a support to produce a floating wick, what's the problem with floating a good wick on top of a walnut so the wick doesn't sink into the oil? So the Gemara answers, you're right. There is no two opinions in the Mishnah. It's cool of Hashem Gamliel. The Gemara does this a lot. The entire Mishnah is one opinion, all Hashem Gamliel. And it's lacking words, you have to add in some words. This is like to read the Brisa. One wrapped a wick that you could light with on top of the wick. Hey, Malikimo, you're not allowed to do that because we're worried you might come to light the bad wick alone. So when these were talking with the Halik, that's only talking about the light. But lahakvois, mutter. It's mutter. We're getting towards the two dots in the bottom of chafal from mouth, or the first two dots. But the lahakvos mutter. But lahakvos is permitted. You're allowed to support it as to be a floating wick. Because Rav Gamliel used to say, relate over an incident. He used to say, my father's house used to use the walnut as a floating wick. So ultimately, the Gemara answers, we have no proof from the Brisa that you are allowed to wrap a bad wick on top of a good wick on top of a bad wick. The Brisa was only talking about using it as a floating wick. And therefore, what would be is, even though now you circumvent the problem by putting a good wick or good oil within the bad oil, we're afraid if you come to do that as a conduit, as a means to light well, you might come to do it alone. You might light with the bad oil, the bad wick alone. That's the conclusion of the Gemara at this point. But asking my Aini, is this so? We make a decree. This is melted fats and fish innards, which were dissolved fish innards, which apparently are flammable. A person, so those were already disqualified. The Mishnah disqualified melted fats and fish, dissolved fish oil, right? We already disqualified them. But a person is allowed nice and total shem kosher. You could put a little bit of oil in them, which will help them out then. Then they'll be able to light properly. So we see over here that we are allowed to. We see from here that you are allowed to put a little good oil in the bad oil to help it out. Which contradicts Rabbah. Answers the Gemara, no. You made a mistake. Because in reality, the fish oil that's dissolved or the dissolved fat really is properly lit. They could light properly. They're nimshach, they're mimshach, they're pulled after the wick now, even alone without a mixture. And when it comes to bad wicks or bad oil that we disqualified before, they are not pulling after the wick properly alone, without a mixture. But the rabbis made a decree, and they said, listen, they made a decree, and they said, listen, fat which is dissolved is really okay, but we're worried about using it because you might use fat that's not dissolved. Likewise, fish innards that were dissolved are also they're proper alone to light with. They're pulled after the wick. But we made a decree, we made a decree because of fish oil that was not dissolved. So therefore, bear in mind, the Gemara is telling you, this melted fats over here in fish oil, they themselves are not problematic. They're only problematic because we're worried about the fat that's not dissolved. So therefore, that's already one decree. And the rule in the Torah, the rule in the Gemara is always we try never to make a decree. We don't make a rabbinical decree to protect you from another rabbinical commandment. Only we make rabbinical decrees on a d'oraisa. But either way, the fish oil which is dissolved and the fat which is dissolved is anyways, according to Maker Adin, it's okay. It's only a decree. So we're not going to make another decree and say that you're not allowed to mix oil into them. That's going too far. So therefore, the Gemara concludes that therefore, to be a decree that dissolved fats and dissolved fish oil, that you put in a little oil in them, because of to make a decree that maybe you'll come to light with fat that's dissolved, with no oil in it, or fish that's not dissolved, with no oil in it. Hey, gufa gzera, that itself is a decree, but on nekum and igzar gzera, we're making a decree upon a decree. In other words, the Gemara's answer is very simple. That really, in reality, we maintain our opinion of Rambam. That you're not allowed to put in the bad oils a little bit of good oil to help it out, fix it up. Because the decree, perhaps you might come to light it alone. And that which you said, that fats which are dissolved, you could put, which are disqualified, you could put a little oil there. That's because even the fats that are dissolved are not really a problem. They're only a problem because of the decree you might come to do a non-dissolved fat. So therefore, we allow you to put oil in it because that, if you didn't allow that would be decree upon a decree. That would be taking it way too far in your decree. Right, that's going way too far, and therefore we never made such a decree. But however, something which alone would be disqualified if you didn't mix it in, there we disqualified you to mix something which will help you out, because that would be only one decree. So that's the ultimate Gemara's answer. You cannot fix it up by putting a little bit of good oil or putting a good wick around it. We're worried about that you might come to light it alone, the bad oil. Okay. Now, Tani Rabbi Rachamam. All the wicks and the oils that the rabbi said, you're not allowed with on Shabbos. The ones that we disqualified for Shabbos usage. All of those, likewise, they cannot be used in the Beis Hamikdash for lighting the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash as well. Mishum Shenamar, because in the Beis Hamikdash, in referencing lighting the menorah, it says Lahalon Ner Tamid. It says Lahalos Ner Tamid. You have to light the Ner Tamid. And what does that have to do with anything? That's referring to the menorah. The menorah has to be lit constantly. There has to be a Ner Tamid there. So what does that have to do with anything? With the discussion above. So he brought this brisa down, and he explained where the pasuk explains this point. The pasuk is an indication that has to the halos ner tamid, that it has to be able to light by the flame has to go up by itself. It has to be such a wick and such a oil in that you won't have to worry that maybe it will get ruined and you'll have to come to mitakin to fix it up. It has to be such a flame. And therefore we see from here that all the oils which we disqualified by Shabbos, because we're worried about they're not proper oils to light, it has to get the same qualifications of the Beis Hamikdash, that it has to be oila me'aleh, a wick, a candle which goes up by itself, which doesn't need outside help, outside support. That's what we see in the Beis Hamikdash. And likewise, it can't have help through a davar acher, through an outside means. It has to be by itself a properly lit wick and candle. Okay. Tznan. We learned in a Mishnah. You ever wonder what they did with the old Kohen Gadol's garments? What did they do with all the old clothes in the Beis Hamikdash? So you know what they did over here. They didn't fix them. They never fixed it because in the Beis Hamikdash there's a concept called Ein Ashiris B'Makom Aniyos. It's a place of wealth. We don't put patches on the Kohen Gadol's clothes in the Beis Hamikdash. If Kalim and the Beis Hamikdash break, we don't fill up the holes. We toss them and do new ones. It's a place of wealth, right? So what do you do with the old clothes of the Kohen Gadol? They used to strip them into pieces and make wicks for the candle of them. And their old belts. They used to them, and they used to rip them apart and make wicks on them to light the menorahs for the Simchas Beis Shoeva. The Gemara in the last parak in Sukkah describes, if you have never seen this, if you ever seen, no one's ever seen such a simcha before. The Gemara says, as the rejoicing they used to do in the Beis Hamikdash during Sukkot in honor of the water libations, and they used to light these tremendous lanterns outside, and everyone in Yerushalayim could see them. And we mimic that nowadays, our modern day Beis Shoevas we do. But they used to light those lanterns with the old garments of the belts of the Kohen Gadol and their old garments, the old worn out clothes. But what's the problem here? The material that the belts of the Kohen are made of are actually shatnez. They were kalaim. They contain semer in them. They contain wool in them, and wool was disqualified before. So we see over here, then the Beis Hamikdash, you're allowed to light with wool. Things which are just wicks which are disqualified for Beis Hamikdash, or for Shabbos, we see are okay to use for the Simchas Beis Shoeva. Right. Okay, that's the Gemara's question. Answer the Gemara. Shiny. The Gemara answers shiny. Beis Shoeva, Simchas Beis Shoeva, shiny. No, the Beis Shoeva is different. That wasn't real. That wasn't the real avodah of the Beis Hamikdash. The real of lighting the candle was lighting the menorah. This was a mitzvah. It was a mitzvah. It was a tremendous mitzvah, but it wasn't this is not the Beis Hamikdash we're referring to. It's not the Beis Hamikdash. We're referring to the candles of the menorah. That's where it says the house in their tummy. But since Beis Hamikdash, we're not as concerned with that. Okay. Yeah. Tashma. The Tani Rabba Barmasa, Big Day Kuna, Shabalu, Mafkino. So the Big Day Kuna that got worn out, they used to Mafkino, they used to break it up into strips, and they used to make it seals the Beis Hamikdash, for wicks for the Beis Hamikdash. My love the Kalaim. Are we not talking about the clothes, the belt of the Kohen Hedjod, who contains Kalaim, contains shatnez, which contains walnut? And therefore, we see you're allowed to use wool in the Beis Hamikdash, which is disqualified for Shabbos, which contradicts the previous point that says the same rules by Shabbos as for the Beis Hamikdash. Answers the Gemara, Lord the boots. We're talking about the belt, I think, of the Kohen Gadol, who was the boots, was made out of pure linen, We're not talking about lighting of the Kohen Gadol's, Kohen Hedjod's clothes, which became Amra. Okay, now we're going to get involved in the sugya of Hanukkah, right? All the wicks and the disqualified candles so you can light on Shabbos. You also cannot light with them on Hanukkah. Bein b'Shabbos, bein b'chol. Whether it's Shabbos Hanukkah, going Friday going into Shabbos Hanukkah, or bein b'chol, or whether it's b'chol, or whether it's one of the weekdays of the weeknights of Hanukkah. You're not allowed to light with on Ner Hanukkah. You're not allowed to light with all the disqualified ones we spoke of before. Likewise, the rule applied by Hanukkah, whether it's Shabbos Hanukkah or whether it's Hanukkah during the week. Amar Rava, my time at Rav Huna. What's the reason of Huna? Why? Why does Hanukkah have the same rules? So there's a famous machlokes called Kavsa Zakuglo or Kavsa Ein Zakuglo. That means when Kavsa means extinguishes, when the Ner Hanukkah extinguishes, are you Zakuglo? Or are you not zakul? Are you required to relight it? Are you zakul? Is it incumbent upon you to fix it up, or ain't zakul? Or is it not incumbent upon you to fix it up? It's a famous machlokes, right? Is halakha oisim mitzvah and halakha mitzvah? Right? Ner Chanukah, when you light it immediately, are you done with your job? Is that kapsa ain't zakul? Or when you light it, if it extinguishes, you have to refix it again. That's the machlokes here. So the Rava says, "My time in Rav Huna." What's the reason of Rav Huna? Savar kapsa zakul. Rav Huna holds that if the Hanukkah candle gets extinguished, you're required to relight it. It's not enough that you just lit it; you got to relight it again. And therefore, that's why during the weekday, you are not allowed to light with the disqualified candles of Shabbos because they're bad candles. They don't light well. And we're afraid that they may come to extinguish, and you may not relight it again. And the halacha by Hanukkah is you have to have your candle lit. It's not enough just to light it, it has to be lit even if it extinguishes. Therefore, we're suspicious if you light with these bad wicks that don't light properly, it may extinguish and you may not come to relight it again. And likewise, the reason on Shabbos it's usher, meaning Friday going into Shabbos, even though you will not relight it on Shabbos, right? On Shabbos, it's mutter l'shamish l'oiro. In other words, there's a machlokas, as we all know, we sing it, we can't mishkamish l'oiro. You're not allowed to use Hanukkah lights. As we all know that. You can't count money by them, you can't read by the Hanukkah lights. It's a special mitzvah, and we don't allow you to use it. But Rav Huna's of the opinion you're allowed to use it. Being that you're allowed to use it, we're afraid that a person might come to read from the Hanukkah candles on Friday night, Shabbos, and since it's a bad wick, he might come to fix it on Shabbos. That's what we're worried about. So that's why all the disqualified wicks and candle and oils are disqualified in Hanukkah as well. Bein Shabbos ben Yontiv, right? Because we're worried about relighting it, but that you might not relight it when it goes out, or we're worried about you might come to read from it and come to tip it and fix it on Shabbos. Paisus points out we could have said the same reason on Shabbos as well. That Kaf saying since Kaf says law, it might come to be extinguished on Shabbos and you won't be able to refix it again. But the Gemara chose a different reason. Rav Chisda says, he argues and he says, no, you're allowed on the weekday of Hanukkah to light with these bad disqualified wicks. Avalo b'Shabbos, but not on Shabbos, not on Friday going into Shabbos. Why? Tadar, he holds. Kavsa, turn the page. Ein zakukla. His opinion is, if the candle that you lit extinguishes, you don't have to relight it. You did your mitzvah already, and therefore we have no problem with you on the weekday lighting with bad disqualified wicks, because what's the worst that's going to happen? It'll get extinguished. Okay, it gets extinguished. That you did your mitzvah. You're done. You don't have to relight it again. And on Shabbos, though, he prohibits it on Shabbos, Friday going to Shabbos, because he holds mutter l'shtamish l'oira. He also has the same opinion as Rav Huna beforehand, that you're allowed to use the Chanukah licht, and therefore, since you're allowed to read and use it, we're afraid you might use it on Friday night Shabbos, and it might be a bad light, and therefore you might come to fix it. Amar Rav Zera, Amar Master, Amar Rav Zera, Amar Rav Psilos, Shemam, Chacham, Eim Alikim, and B'Shabbos. All the wicks that the rabbis and the oils, the rabbis said you can't light with on Shabbos, Malikim and Mechanukah. His opinion is you could light with the Mechanukah, which is, if you notice, we do pass in this way, right? There's many also deep mystical ideas about this, that everything that's possible during the year, Hanukkah, were elevated and they're all kosher. But all the wicks and the disqualified wicks and candles and oils on Shabbos that are disqualified on Hanukkah are okay according to Rav. They're okay. My time at Rav, what's the reason of Rav? Savar, Tafsin Zakublo. He holds that the candle extinguishes. You're not required to relight it again. So therefore, we're not worried about it extinguishing. And therefore, you could have bad wicks. And when he holds, this is the way we hold as well, you're not allowed to use the light of the candles. Right? You can't use them to count money, to read by them. You can't even do a mitzvah by them. Right? You can't even, that's why you can't eat your Shabbos meal by them. That's what we're talking about. You can't do a mitzvah by them. And therefore, you're allowed to light them Shabbos Hanukkah as well, because we're not afraid you're going to come to use them. Amur Rabbanan, this is the way we paskin. You light the candles, it extinguishes, no problem. You do not have to relight it. It might be a mitzvah, you don't have to relight it, because we say hadlaka is mitzvah. The lighting is the mitzvah, not being lit. And likewise, do not use the candles, and for your own benefit. And the nafkamina that comes out of that is that you could use all the disqualified wicks that are for Shabbos disqualified. We don't care about Hanukkah, because what's the big deal if it's not a powerful light and it's not proper? We're not worried about anything. Okay. So this halacha, the Rabbanan said in front of Abaye and related over to Abaye, which is said in the name of Yirmiyah, v'lo kiblu. But Abaye didn't accept it. He didn't believe it. He didn't believe it. He did not believe the halacha for some reason. He didn't feel it was something reliable. Then in later years, he asked Rabban, when Rabban came along, Amar Rabbanan committed Abaye Mishmir Yochanan. He said the same halacha in front of in the name of Rav Yochanan. Then Abaye was mekabel. He felt it was reliable, and he exclaimed, woe to me, Zakai, if I was really merited, Gamer to Lishmat Mikra, I would have been Zocha to receive it and consider it reliable initially and incorporate it in my mass Torah knowledge. And I would have Mikra B'Hagama, and I would have learned it. But I didn't merit. In other words, he was bemoaning on the fact that he didn't merit to accept this halacha earlier. So the Gemara asked the question is, Gamra, I'm sorry, he learned it now, right? What do you crying over spilled milk, as they say? You learned it now. So you didn't learn it before, but you learned it now. What's the big deal? The Gemara says, Nafkimino legirsi yankusa. There's a massive difference, and this is a very important thing. Girsi yankusa. The learning that you do when you're yankusa in your youth is much more impressionable and effective, and you remember it much better. So in his youth, if he wished that in his youth he would have learned this halacha or properly accepted, then it would have been much fresher, much more impressionable. He only learned in his old age, which is not as good. That's what he was bemoaning. So that's a chizik to us that we learn as much now as we can, because when we get older, we get aging, it's much harder, and it doesn't stay in our minds as much. Ask the Gemara, but Kapsa in Zakula, is this true? When the candle extinguishes, you're not required to relight it again? For a minute, I want to ask you a contradiction. It says mitzvasa mishatishra chama sheticha regel minashuk. Then when describing the mitzvah of Hanukkah, the mitzvah of Hanukkah's light is shkia, sunset, sheticha regel minashuk, till the people in the shuk, the activity in the marketplace ceases to exist. My love. So we see it's from shkia till ticha regel minashuk, right? Many people say it's a half-hour period. But the Gemara says, my love. Why is it telling us that time frame? My love is not that time frame to Yikavsa automatically. Is that not that time frame there to tell us Yikavsa automatically that in the event that it extinguishes, you have to relight it again? Otherwise, why is it telling you that time frame? It's telling you this time frame is the time frame that it has to be lit for, the Gemara's understanding. That if it gets extinguished, you have to relight it. To which the Gemara, so therefore we see that it's not true. If it gets extinguished, you are required to relight it. The Gemara says, no. It doesn't mean you have to relight it during that period of time. It means zilo aldik maldik. It means that that's your frame of time to light. If you didn't light, you light it during that frame of time from shkia to ticha regel shuk. It's giving you the frame of time when you light it, but it's not telling you even if you lit it and extinguish, you have to relight it again. The inami, or another answer is the shiurei. It's the amount of oil you have to put in. You have to put in a half hour's worth of oil whenever you light. But just to point out over here, these two answers of the Gemara are very halachically important. They make a big nafkamina, right? As Taisus points out, and other Rishonim point out, because the first answer in the Gemara tells you this is the time period to light from Shkia until Ticha Regel. And if you light past the point, you may not be Yotzi, which is how the Rambam paskins. But according to the second answer of the Gemara is not makbid on a frame of time when you light. Maybe it's ideal to light this time. It's just telling you how much oil you have to put in. So you could potentially light past that time period. Or another nafkamina would be, according to the second teretz, you need a half hour of oil. And anything past the half hour of oil would be okay to use. But you could use the wicks you could use the oil after a half hour. But according to the first teretz, that wouldn't be the case. According to the first teretz, you the entire wick would be, all the oil would be considered designated for mitzvah and would be also another frame of time. But however, nowadays, anyways, we don't light for the outside people. We don't light for the outside. Our mitzvah nowadays is for the people inside the house, for the family, for inside. That's our Pesumei Nisa. Therefore, we do not have a problem lighting past these points nowadays, past the Ticha Regel Minashuk. And the Gemara relates over Ad Ticha Regel Minashuk. Ad Kama, describe to me what is Ticha Regel Minashuk until how far? Until the feet of the Talmudim, this is a certain nation, certain nationality, they would stop searching on the shuk. Apparently they lagged around more than other people. They used to gather firewood. That was their business. They sold firewood. They lagged around longer than most people. So it has to be until that point. Tara Rabbanan. Mitzvah's Hanukkah near Isha Vesa. What's the mitzvah of Hanukkah? Right? If you want to get the raw mitzvah, the bare minimum mitzvah is just one candle per family. Ner Isha Besa, one ner for a man in his house. That's the bare minimum mitzvah, just one candle. That's all you got to do. Mehadrin, if you want a little bit better, Mehadrin, then it's ner l'chol echad ve'echad. It's one candle for every family member. Mahadran and Mahadran, if you want the Mahadran and Mahadran, the ultimate, then you do what we do nowadays, and that is, lighting, 8 candles, or we'll see in a moment. Beis Shammai is famous machlokes. Beis Shammai Yomi Rishon. This is the best of the Mahadran. The first day Madik Shmona. You start off with lighting 8. As your days go on, the 7th day you light 7. Day 6, 6. You take off a candle each day. And Beis Hillel, we don't go like this, obviously. But Beis Hillel, Beis Hillel says no. First day, light 1. Therefore, then you add on. You add on more. Okay. Just to point out, Taisus famously says that the idea of this mahadran of lighting one, adding on every night, like we do nowadays in Mahadran, is only referring to the Neri Shaveso mitzvah. It's referring to when only one person in the household lights. But if you're doing the mahadran where everyone in the family lights, there is no mitzvah to do mahadran to light a candle and add on each night, because there's no recognition then. Because since you're lighting for every family member, we don't see that you're lighting one menorah with many candles. Perhaps there's many people in the house. So Taisus famously says the mahadran is only an event where one person in the family is lighting. The Rambam famously argues on that, and that is our minhag nowadays. More like the Rambam, the Rambam has some uniqueness about his shita, is that every family member lights like Beis Hillel. We do the mahadran and the mahadran. What's the machlokes Beis Shammai Beis Hillel? What are they arguing about? So, Amar Ula, pligi about Trei Amorai. There's 2 Amorai arguing in Eretz Yisrael. Yosef Rabin, Rav Yosef Arsida. These 2 sages. Chad Amar, time of Beis Shammai, Knei Yomi Nechnasim. One opinion says the reason Beis Shammai is you look at all the days that are coming in Nechnasim, right? Day 1, we look at all the days that will be coming, 8 days. The time of Beis Hillel says no. We look at the days that passed, including the day that you're holding it. So day 1, you light 1 candle. Day 2, 2 candles. You count the days that passed, including the day you're holding it. Another reason says the alternate reason for the Beis Shammai, getting a pariyachag, representing the cows that they used to bring in the Beis Hamikdash during Sukkot. And then we know they used to bring, on the first day, they used to bring 13 cows, I think. And then every day they brought one less and one less. So eventually we got to the famous, wonderful day of Shmini Atzeres, which represents only Klal Yisrael. We only brought 1 power, which represents Klal Yisrael. The rest represent the Goyim of the world, how the Goyim of the world are eventually going to be extinguished and cut off, slowly. And we mimic that on Hanukkah as well, according to Beis Shammai, that we light more and then we diminish. I'm not clear why we have a representation of the Korbanos and Sukkot and Hanukkah. I didn't look that up exactly. It seems a little strange, but we mimic the idea that we do by Sukkot. And time of the Beis Hillel, the Malam Bekodesh and Reading, because we always go up in holiness. We don't go down in holiness. You don't light many and then detract every single day. That's going down in holiness. We go up in holiness. We light 1, then we light 2, we light 3. And we know this halacha. This has a lot of ramifications. Halacha. It's spoken about in the Gemara in Megillah and other Gemaras. That, for example, let's say you can't take a holier item and make a less holier item out of it. Like, let's say an item for a Sefer Torah, you can't demote it to now use it for tefillin or something of that sort. Likewise here, don't go down in holiness, we go up in holiness. That's why you add a candle every night. There was 2 elders who were in the town of Sidon. One conducted himself like Beis Shammai. And one conducted himself like Beis Hillel. Right? This, by the way, it's always problematic to go like Beis Shammai. Right? We spoke about that before. You do like Beis Shammai, you're liable to death. The Gemara says you deserve to be killed. The Gemara said something of that sort. But I guess that the Gemara, we saw that that's only an event where Beis Hillel wouldn't agree with Beis Shammai. If Beis Shammai is more machmer than Beis Hillel, then apparently that would be okay to do like Beis Shammai, because it's Beis Hillel plus. Beis Hillel plus. So I'm not sure. I would guess if that rule applied over here, it seemed like Beis Shammai. I don't know why that would be the case, because Beis Shammai over here, Beis Hillel wouldn't agree with, because that's Maridin Bekodesh. So I'm just leaving that as a kasha for now to look up. Why are you allowed to do like Shitas Beis Shammai? How are you allowed to do that? You're going down in holiness. My assumption is because this sage held the opinion of Beis Shammai, and Beis Hillel was not about going down in Kodesh. You have to go up now. He held the other reason. He held the reason that Beis Hillel held that you light one and add on every night is because we want to represent the days that went out. But he's not going according to the reason of going down in holiness, because if that was the case, you would not be able to pass the Beis Shammai. Okay, that was all parenthetical, but the problem is that I'm wrong, because it says in the next line of the Gemara, the reason that one said I go to Beis Shammai, I want to represent the Parei Chag, the Karbanos Sukkos. Another one says Malam Bekodesh V'Meridin, because you go up in holiness, you can't go down in holiness. Okay, Tana Rabbanan, Ner Chanukah Mitzvah Nichal Pesach Beisa. The Ner Chanukah, where is the placement? The placement is to put it on the Pesach Beisa, the entranceway of your house, Mebechutz, from the outside. That was the way in the Gemara you do it. In Eretz Yisrael, they still do it that way. We don't do it that way nowadays. You put it indoors. That's the minute you put indoors. But it was supposed to be on the doorstep on the outside of the house. Famously, Rashi and Tosfos argue about where this is. Rashi explains that this was in your chutzner. The way it used to work back in the days is they had their houses open to this massive courtyard, which was shared by many houses, and the courtyard entered into the street. There's entrance to the street. Rashi says you place it in the doorstep of your house facing the courtyard. Tosfos' opinion is not the way. Tosfos' opinion is the place that you put it is not in your courtyard. You're putting it facing in. You're putting in the chutzner facing Rishus Harabim. You're not at the entranceway of your house. You're putting in the entranceway of the chutzner facing the Rishus Harabim. That's the machlokas Rashi says. What exactly they're arguing about? You have to look at the deeper sources what they're arguing about. But they have that argument where you place it. It seems like Tosfos wants it for Simonisa for the rabbin, for the public, and according to Rashi, it seems like it's more for the people who live in your chutzner who are probably Jewish. So I don't know if it's a machlokas, if it's the publication of the nations for Jews, or is it for Goyim? Who is it for? Maybe that's what they're arguing about, perhaps. I don't know. Okay. That's what it says. And then the Gemara goes further. Let's say you lived in an upper floor, you lived on a top floor. You can't put it outside your doorstep. So you put it in your window, facing Shizrabim. When it's a sakana, in the olden days, there used to be sakana, because they only, in the days of their holiday, they only lit a candle in their holiday, they lit for their holiday, but not for other purposes. Then you could put it on your shulchan. That's enough. Rabba says you need a shamish. You need another candle to use the or, because since you're not allowed to use the or of the candle, Hanukkah candles, you need another candle to use that. And if a person has a torch, another light in his house that he uses light from, there's not a problem. You don't need a shamish. But if he's a distinguished person, apparently distinguished people in the old days did not use torches. That was considered it was considered not dignified to take a torch and use it, right? So even if there's a torch, he still needs a shamish, because we want to make sure you do not use the candles of the menorah, rather using the shamish light. My Hanukkah, what's this Hanukkah that we're talking about till now? What nace happened on Hanukkah that we made this decree to light the menorah? The Tana Rabbanan, on the 25th of Kislev, Yomi de Hanukkah Tamnon. This is probably the Megillah's Tainus, listing the different Yom Tovim that exist, rabbinical Yom Tovim. The Yom Hanukkah, Tamininon, they're 8 days. The Mitzvah Bahon, you're not allowed to eulogize in them. There are happy days. You can't fast on Hanukkah. Why? When the accursed Greeks entered into the Heichel to contaminate the Beis Hamikdash and stripped Klal Yisrael of our holiness, they contaminated all the oil in the Heichel. They said, we don't believe in Tumah B'Tara, spiritual, we don't see it, it's not tangible, we don't believe in it, they contaminate everything. And the house of Chashmonaim became strong, and won them, vanquished them. They wanted to do the mitzvah lighting the menorah. They checked and they only found one jug of oil. They had a seal of a Kohen Gadol on it. Only had enough to light one day. 8 days it lit. The Shana Charis, the next year, they called them also Yom Tovim. They made a Yom Tov. They made a yontif. Rashi says, what does it mean to make a yontif? Right? They said you say halal, and they say you got to add an alanisim. If you notice here, it doesn't mention anything about the Hanukkah candles. Interesting, right? Some people learn because the Hanukkah candles are the hoidah. That's what some people learn. But Rashi says it's alanisim. Interesting to note that point. It's non-hosam. The Mishnah says, Gates, this is the laws of Baba Kama, damage laws, which are relevant to Hanukkah. Gates,
What's
Gates is a spark. When a blacksmith is pounding with his tool on the metal, sparks shoot out and they get damaged. Gates are sparks that come out from the hammer. The yots of Isaac, and they go and damage chayev. They damage your chayev. That's negligence. Gamal shetom pishtam v'obi rishus rabim. Let's say you had a camel walking through Rishus Rabim, and it's loaded on its back, tons of linen on its back, and the linen obviously it's going different directions. V'nichzu pishtam tochanut, and you loaded it so much where the strands that were over on the back of the camel went into the store of a store owner's store, which has a candle, and it lit on fire. Vidalka b'nero shachamani, and it lit the fire on the fire, the candle of the store owner, and then the camel went, and it burnt down someone's house. Who's chayiv? Who's liable? Baal Gamal chayiv, the owner of the camel, because he's negligent for overloading it. But if the cheman is sort of put his candle on the outside, then chenmani chayiv. The chenmani is chayiv because it's the store owner's fault. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, and this is why this is irrelevant for us, even though it's a random subject, because B'ner Chanukah potter. When it comes to Chanukah candles, you're potter. Because you're allowed, it's a mitzvah, you're allowed to put it outside. Since it's a mitzvah, we don't consider the store owner negligent in this sense. In this case, the camel owner will be responsible. Amar Avina, Zois Temeris, from here we see, near Chanukah mitzvah nichas asar. The near Chanukah, the mitzvah is to put it within 10 tefachim of the ground. Because if you really think it's above 10 tefachim of the ground, then the camel owner could tell the store owner, I know it's a mitzvah, but why did you put it so low? You should have put it above 10 tefachim, above the camel and its rider. So the mere fact that he doesn't have that response and that defense to himself is a proof that the mitzvah is within 10 tefachim, which is which is within a realm of where the donkey, it's susceptible for the donkey, the camel, to light it on fire from it. But the Gemara rejects it and says, no, who says the proof? The Gemara says, no. Maybe in reality, you're allowed to put it above. Maybe in reality, you are allowed to put it higher, perhaps. But if the rabbis required you to put it so high, we're afraid you would have refrained from the mitzvah. So don't bring a proof from here. The fact that you're exempt, that your mitzvah is to put it within 10. Maybe the mitzvah is also above 10, but the rabbis didn't want to make you responsible to put it above 10 because we're afraid if we put a terech on you to put it so high, you may come refrain from doing the mitzvah. So you don't have a conclusive proof from here. Okay, let us stop over here.
Okay, our Rabbeinu time tomorrow is 8:23.
Okay, should we try 9?
Yeah, 9. Last week it was 8:17, so it's moving.
Okay, let's do 9. Let's put it. I'm going to send out a text. Let's
Awesome.
9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, good Shabbos.
For Sunday, Rabbi?
Huh?
9 o'clock for when?
Mostly
Tomorrow, always.
Moses Shabbos? Okay.
Okay. All right, have a good Shabbos, guys. Stay healthy.
All right, Shkach, Rabbi,
You too.
Shabbos.
Yeah.